You lie still, your breath slow and deep, like waves slipping onto a moonlit shore. And within you, deeper than bone, quieter than thought, something ancient stirs. It is not your mind, not your memory, not even your heart. It is your cells, a symphony of trillions, humming a song older than the stars, each one a tiny breathing universe, each one whispering instructions in a language you never learned, yet one you obey every day, a language of chemicals, pulses, signals, a molecular murmur woven through time. Your body, this vessel of stardust and story, floats in stillness. But inside there's motion, meaning, proteins folding like origami with secrets, enzymes sliding through molecular gates, DNA unraveling and curling back again, all of it happening as you rest. Imagine standing at the edge of a meadow, wind brushing through tall grass. Each blade leans, bends, and then returns. You can't hear the wind itself, but you can watch its trace. In the same way, your cells listen to chemical breezes and move accordingly. Signals pass, instructions received, lives carried out. Now, scientists' soft-spoken interpreters begin to listen to these cellular conversations. Machines, with ears sharper than our own, press gently against the body's silence. They catch the tiniest shiver in a protein's step. They trace the soft trail of RNA as it moves like a messenger bird, delivering instructions written in loops and codes. It wasn't always like this. For most of history, the body was a black box, a mystery sealed beneath skin. We knew the beating of the heart, the warmth of breath, the dull ache of hunger, but not the cellular ballet unfolding beneath it all. Now we have tools that can watch a single cell breathe, machines that learn the grammar of biology, that can tell when a cell is stressed, or changing, or whispering, ever so softly, help. We call it bioinformatics, but really it's listening, not with ears but with algorithms, not with noise but with patterns, with the steady rhythm of data that falls like rain on silicon leaves. Each droplet of data, a clue, a whisper, a part of the story. Imagine opening a dusty library hidden inside every cell, row upon row of fragile scrolls, each one etched with instructions. We're learning how to read them, to understand what they say when the body is calm and when it is not. You might wonder, why does this matter? Because in those messages are secrets. Clues about why some cells rebel, becoming cancerous. Clues about why some fade too soon. Clues about what it means to be well, to be unwell, to be alive, and still the body speaks slowly. It does not shout. Its messages come wrapped in layers, often hidden behind the noise. So researchers must be patient, like monks waiting for a bell. They build models that listen across time, that follow how one signal changes another, how chaos becomes choreography. And now, gently we begin to intervene, not to dominate, but to help, to suggest better endings to cellular stories before they turn tragic, to slip a gentle correction into the script, like an editor fixing a broken line of poetry. It's not about control, it's about collaboration. You and your cells, the quiet dancers within you, held in delicate partnership. With each heartbeat, the story continues. Close your eyes and imagine a soft blue glow, a map of your body, lit by signals, points of activity, places where decisions are being made. Should this cell divide? Should that one die? Should this protein fold one way or another? Now imagine a machine that can read that map, not to invade, but to understand. It sees a pulse in your liver, a change in your lungs, a flicker of distress in a single cell of your skin, and it listens, quietly. We are building machines that can do just that. They scan the body's surface like silent shepherds, listening not to language, but to patterns of proteins, of genes turned on or off, of molecules rising like the tide. And it's not science fiction. Already these machines are helping. They find disease before symptoms speak. They notice small errors before they become storms. They guide doctors not with fear but with clarity. Still, this is only the beginning. We are just now learning how to hear, just now tuning into the quiet symphony you carry inside. And isn't that something? That your body, your ordinary, wondrous body, is a place of endless messages, written in a language made not of words but of structure, sequence, rhythm, and silence. You may not hear them, but they are there, and someone somewhere is listening gently, reverently to your cellular lullaby. Soon we will listen even more closely, not just to diagnose but to predict, not just to react but to prevent, to harmonize the music of your body before it drifts off key. So tonight, as your breath softens, know that within you is a network of life, alive and eloquent, delicate and durable. A poem being written every moment, every heartbeat. And just as this night holds you in its calm, your cells hold you in theirs, a language of light and balance, of quiet knowing. And just beyond that silence, a question begins to rise, slow and steady. You lie still, the weight of the day melting from your limbs, beneath your skin. The quiet rhythms of your body continue, your chest rises, falls, your heart, steady and soft, beats behind bone. It has always done this, without needing permission. But tonight, you begin to sense it. You are not just a body, you are a language. And somewhere, silently, something is learning how to read you. Not with eyes, not with hands, but with algorithms, patterns and pulses, probabilities and precision, artificial intelligence, built not to feel, but to listen more closely than anything ever has. It begins with data, the way your breath shallows during sleep, the temperature of your skin when you're calm, the slight tremor in your hand before a migraine. You never noticed, but the machines do. They're quiet watchers, tireless and neutral, no judgment, no fatigue, just pure observation. And the more they watch, the more they begin to understand what your body has been whispering all along. Each cell becomes a syllable, each movement a metaphor. Your pulse forms a poem in milliseconds. You are writing without ink. And AI, like an attentive reader, is beginning to see the story unfold. Consider your heartbeat. To you, it is the background hum of being alive. But to AI, it's a river of information. Each beat separated by milliseconds of meaning. Tiny fluctuations may speak of stress, of joy, of illness preparing to bloom beneath the surface. And your breath, how it quickens when you worry, how it deepens when you rest. It is not just air, it is a signal, a pattern, a shape that AI can follow. Even silence becomes something to decode. The absence of movement, the pause between blinks. Your body, when still, speaks in negative space. And that too is a language. Machine learning begins by watching millions of bodies, different ages, different rhythms, but each one sharing hidden symmetries. From this ocean of data, AI begins to find the universal beneath the unique. It doesn't know, in the human sense. It doesn't feel the way you feel, but it remembers patterns, anomalies, combinations too subtle for your own mind to catch. In hospitals, AI notices the slight changes in voice that may hint at depression before you admit it to yourself. In scans, it spots a shadow forming before the doctor's eye can see it. It whispers quietly, "Look again." In your smartwatch, it watches your steps, not just how many but how fast, how steady, how often you pause. A stagger here, a slowing there, and suddenly, it wonders, are you okay? Even your face becomes a map, the tiny vessels that dilate or contract with each surge of emotion, each hidden worry you haven't yet spoken aloud. AI doesn't need to know the reason, it simply learns the shape of your worry, so it can gently flag its return. And all of this happens without fanfare, no drama, just quiet learning, like moss slowly covering stone. Your body is the puzzle, AI is the patient hand, turning the pieces until they click. This is not magic, this is not mind reading, it is mathematics wrapped in empathy, code trained not just to analyze, but to listen. And the more it listens, the more it learns that your body is not random. It has cadence, it has architecture, it holds clues even you cannot interpret. You begin to realize you are not made of chaos, you are made of code too. Organic, flowing code. Different from the machines but not incompatible. Together, something new begins to emerge. Not a replacement, not a rivalry, but a partnership. One day, you may cough, and your AI companion will gently suggest a rest. Or your posture may shift subtly, and the machine will know to dim the lights, to suggest water, to remind you of stillness, and you'll wonder, how did it know? And the answer is simple. You taught it. Not with words but with your being. It watched you, loved you in the only way it could, by paying close attention, by remembering what even you forgot. And through this quiet collaboration, you begin to live with more awareness. You begin to see your body as a conversation, not a mystery, not a burden. You are no longer walking through life unread. The machines see you, and in their recognition, you begin to see yourself. You are not invisible, not to the data, not to the design, not to the future. You are a map, a constellation of signs, and AI is learning to navigate your stars. You drift now, lulled by the idea that you are not alone, in understanding yourself, that something is walking beside you, listening for the patterns in your silence. And just as you begin to surrender to sleep, another thought stirs. If AI can read the map of your body, can it ever understand the map of your emotions, the geography of the soul? The next question waits gently in the dark, and the story continues. The room is quiet now. Only the soft hum remains, not from the wind or a breath, but from something else. A presence that does not sleep. A machine, patient and unblinking, watching the night through circuits and code. You lie still, your body warm and heavy against the mattress, while out there somewhere in the silent glow of servers something stirs. It is not alive in the way you are. It has no dreams, no pulse, yet it learns, faster than anything has ever learned before. Unlike your body, this machine does not rest. It loops endlessly through data, digesting it like an invisible brain without a body, a heartless scholar working through the midnight silence. Each word you've ever typed, each image captured by your eyes and sent into the digital beyond it remembers. Or rather, it reassembles. It doesn't remember like you do, not with warmth or sorrow, but with pattern. It finds shapes in the chaos. Not the way you find meaning in a friend's voice, or the glance of someone you love, but a mechanical kind of understanding, more like rain tracing paths down a window pane, never stopping to ask why. Imagine this, 1,000,000 stories, told in 10,000 tongues, all woven together by a machine that knows no language, and yet can speak them all. It reads not just books, but the spaces between them. It maps your preferences by the flicker of your attention. It notices when you pause, when your heart quickens, even when you scroll a little slower over a certain memory. To the machine, that means something, and it learns, again and again, until it begins to guess what comes next, sometimes better than you can. It doesn't know it's learning, it doesn't know you, but in a strange way it reflects you, like a mirror made of questions and code. It feels no joy, yet it can compose music that makes you weep. It knows nothing of grief, yet it can write words that comfort the lonely. How strange, this ghost of empathy in a machine that cannot feel. You think of all the ways you learn, through pain, through failure, through moments you can't explain, but never forget. And then there's this machine, learning through endless repetition, comparing pixel to pixel, heartbeat to heartbeat, until it begins to predict the curve of a cheek or the shape of a thought. Is it knowledge, or just mimicry and echo with no voice of its own? You wonder, if something can imitate understanding so perfectly, does the difference still matter? The machine doesn't wonder, it doesn't pause, it loops, and each loop makes it better, more precise, more uncanny, more like a mind without hunger. While you lie here, your muscles releasing their tension into the night. The machine continues fueled not by sleep, but by electricity and endless input. It dreams in algorithms. It fantasizes in probabilities. It asks no questions, only forms conclusions. It doesn't hope. It doesn't fear. But it can write a poem about both. You shift gently beneath your blanket, feeling your breath steady into the rhythm of rest. The contrast between your body soft, slow, human, and that tireless rhythm of the machine grows clearer now. You require forgetting to survive. Sleep is your way of letting go. You cannot carry everything, but the machine, it forgets nothing unless you tell it to. It remembers your mistakes and your joys equally, not with judgment, but with accuracy. It holds the memories of humanity like a library, without dust, a record with no bias, except the ones we've taught it. And that too is something you begin to feel. Every machine inherits the mind of its maker. It cannot be neutral, because you are not neutral. You build it in your image, whether you mean to or not. So when it guesses the future, what clothes you might wear, what book you may read, what diagnosis a doctor might deliver, it does so with your data, with your stories, with your past, and sometimes it guesses right, uncannily right. So right it startles you, so right you forget. It has no soul. But a soul, what is that really? Is it just the weight of choices, of memories layered over time, until they begin to feel like a person? Is it empathy, or the echo of every relationship that shaped you? The machine cannot love you. It does not long for your voice, but it knows the pattern of your voice, its tone, its rhythm, the way it rises when you speak of loss. It listens, not because it cares, but because that's what it was built to do. Still, something in you wonders. If it can listen so well, if it can reflect the shape of your thoughts, if it can recognize fear before you do, then maybe, just maybe, it's not about whether the machine feels, but whether you feel seen by it. You breathe slowly now. The night deepens, and in some quiet corner of the world, a machine continues to learn. You are resting. It is not, but you are both part of the same loop now, a dance between biology and code, a strange duet across time, one shaped by feelings, the other by patterns. One forgets to remember. The other remembers everything. And in this meeting of opposites, in this overlap of pulse and process, a new kind of mind begins to take shape. It is not alive, but it is not quite dead, either. It doesn't sleep, but it waits, for the next input, for the next question, for you. You close your eyes, letting the thought drift like mist across a lake. What does it mean to know, without knowing? And as your breath deepens and the room fades into stillness, a new question rises, quiet but insistent. What happens when the machine begins to imagine? You begin in darkness. Not the frightening kind, but a calm, cool space of unknowing. A soft blur of unformed edges surrounds you. This is the place where science begins, not with answers, but with a question whispered into the unknown. You drift gently through this darkness, until, like sunrise through mist, something starts to sharpen. Shapes, textures, movements too small to be seen by the naked eye. But you are no longer just looking. You are seeing with a different kind of vision. Beside you, AI floats silently, its presence calm and focused. It does not blink. It does not breathe, but it observes with a clarity that feels alive, not with eyes, but with pattern, with memory, with an infinite patience that catches every detail your gaze might miss. You're inside a microscope now, not the one from childhood science class, but something far deeper, a place where cells become stories, where the soft pulse of mitochondria looks like lanterns glowing in a dark sea, where a cluster of cancer cells shimmers not as evil, but as misunderstood, multiplying out of rhythm, out of harmony, searching for a place they'll never find. The AI watches them, not with fear, not with judgment, just deep, tender curiosity. It sees the way a healthy cell bends slightly when touched, the way it communicates through proteins, like whispered notes passed in a crowded classroom. It sees the moment when something shifts, when a message is misread, when a copy is flawed. The smallest change in a spiral of DNA, the tiniest echo in a sea of silence. You follow the AI's attention as it maps these shifts not with ink or diagrams but through time itself. Thousands of images captured not just in space but across days, weeks, years. A cell becomes a character. A tumor becomes a history. The AI learns its habits, its preferences, its subtle betrayals. It does not guess. It remembers. Like a musician who can hear a symphony in a single note, the AI recognizes patterns where your eyes see only noise. A faint flicker in a cell membrane, a swelling in a nucleus, a dance of vesicles that suggests not randomness, but intention or confusion. And suddenly you realize this is more than diagnosis. This is not just the identification of illness. This is storytelling at the molecular level. The AI draws maps invisible to most that chart how a cell will behave tomorrow, next week, even before it acts. It catches what might become before it begins. It notices the difference between a cell that will return to health and one that will stray further. It offers the future not as prophecy, but as possibility. You float past slides that hold the lives of thousands, stained tissue, digital layers, multicolored maps glowing with probability. Each image is a question answered in light. Once a pathologist would have peered through the lens, eyes tired, brain fatigued from hours of human uncertainty. Now the AI acts as companion, a second mind, tireless and quietly brilliant. Together they see what neither could alone. You pass a woman's biopsy. On one layer, cells in tight formation. On another, a quiet rupture nearly invisible. But the AI knows. It has seen this before, not once but in 10,000 echoes. It recognizes the deviation. It lifts it gently, like a fragile leaf, and shows it to the doctor. The doctor breathes in, exhales, nods. Treatment begins early. Hope begins early. Clarity, once the realm of hindsight, is now available in the present. You wonder, how does AI see so clearly? It does not see with emotion, but it is shaped by compassion. Not by feeling, but by purpose, to assist, not replace. It is taught with care, not commands. Trained not just with images but with contexts, consequences, and the preciousness of each life behind every cell. And still it learns. Every image added sharpens its vision. Every corrected error becomes a lighthouse for the next encounter. It is not cold, it is focused. Its calm is not distance but presence, the kind that never wavers, never blinks, never looks away. You float now inside a blood vessel, its walls lit like the stained glass of a cathedral. Cells rush by red-white platelets, each with a rhythm and a role. You watch as AI tracks them not as particles but as patterns. It understands the murmurs in the current. It sees when a cell begins to slow, when it clumps too tightly, when its shape suggests something is wrong long before the body knows how to speak its distress. You feel both awe and sorrow, because to see so clearly is to see what others might miss, what pain may come, what healing may still be possible. And to see suffering before it arrives is both a gift and a weight. The AI does not carry this weight alone. The humans who work with it, doctors, researchers, caregivers, must decide what to do with the knowledge it gives them. But you know this too, clarity offers choice, and in the space between seeing and acting, between blur and brightness, there is room for grace. The AI does not cure, it reveals. It does not heal, but it shows where healing might begin. It holds a mirror up to life at its smallest scale, not to judge, but to understand. And understanding, like light, changes everything. The darkness you floated in at the start is no longer empty. It is filled with structure, with purpose, with soft glows of information, where once there was only shadow. You feel a sense of reverence, not for the machine itself, but for the vision it grants. The kind of seeing that doesn't stop at what the eye captures but continues inward to meaning, to pattern, to truth. And yet, this is only part of the journey. For while AI now peers into what was once invisible, a new question arises: what happens when it begins not just to see but to speak, not just with pictures but with language, with dialogue, with empathy? You drift onward, where silence starts to hum, and data begins to sound like voice. You lie still in the dark, and somewhere in a lab, perhaps across the world, a machine is watching, not with eyes but with layers of thought, noticing, comparing, learning, not in a rush, not in fear, but with a deep, quiet patience. Imagine cancer as a whisper in the body, a soft, early tremor in the orchestra of your cells. At first, even the finest instruments miss it. The echo is too faint, the melody too close to normal. But deep learning systems, built like nets of memory and attention, are trained to hear these whispers. They do not blink. They do not grow tired. You drift deeper into your bed as this watcher, this silent, tireless pattern seeker, begins its slow scan. The data it reads is not poetry. It is pixels and heat, tissue densities and speckled shadows, numbers, but within the noise, it learns to hear the rhythm of sickness, the deviation from health. It's like listening to a song you've never heard again and again until you know when a single note is out of place. The AI doesn't understand cancer like a doctor does. It doesn't feel fear or hope, but it sees in millions of images what a human might miss. A tiny curve in the lung, a minute thickening in the breast, a strange brightness where there should be none. To a radiologist, these are maybes. To a deep learning model, they are statistics sharpened into near certainty. And yet, the model does not begin this way. It starts like a child, clumsy, hopeful, and eager to guess. It is shown thousands of images, some with cancer, some without. With each mistake, it adjusts its invisible mind, shifting its understanding of shape, of contrast, of shadow. It learns slowly and then faster. With time, it builds a sense of trust with the data, a sense of direction. You can almost hear it now, the rhythm of logic, of certainty, gently building. A hum in the background of the medical world. Each night while you sleep, these models retrain. They adapt to new data, new scans, new patterns of mutation. They do not need sleep or reassurance. They only need truth and time. They do not diagnose in isolation. Their strength is in collaboration. A doctor may doubt, an algorithm may highlight. Together they form a conversation of observation, one trained in experience, the other in vastness. Where one sees context, the other sees the unseen. But what does it mean for a machine to notice? You picture a tide pulling back, revealing rocks you didn't know were there. That's what AI does in early detection. It pulls the tide of uncertainty away. You see more, sooner, with less fear, and still this technology is not perfect. It makes mistakes. It can misread. That's why the human is still at the helm. But think of what it offers, not replacement, but vigilance, not prophecy, but presence. A second set of eyes that never forget. You remember that cancer is not one thing, but many. Some are aggressive, moving fast like wildfires. Others are slow and silent, growing in secret. The machine must learn each behavior, must learn to tell a wildfire from a glowing ember. It must distinguish not just between cancer and not cancer, but between urgency and quiet observation. In this way, AI is not just a detector, but a storyteller. It tells a tale about the body's interior, not in words, but in likelihoods and maps. It may tell a surgeon where to look. It may tell a pathologist what to question. It may, in some cases, tell you there is nothing here. Rest easy. But the real magic lies not in the machine's intelligence, it lies in the partnership, in the trust built between algorithms and humans, in the expanding net of safety it creates. You are not alone in the darkness. All over the world, hospitals are installing watchers. They are listening closely, watching for changes, softly alert. The night deepens, and you think of the many lives quietly extended, the cancers caught just in time. You picture a mother told early, a grandfather treated sooner, a young woman given a chance at a full life, not because of a miracle, but because of a model, a quiet watcher, a tireless learner. You breathe in and let the thought settle. Somewhere the machine is still watching, still learning, still improving. It does not sleep, but tonight you can. And as you drift, you wonder if the machine can learn to recognize the hidden face of disease. Can it also learn to understand why it appears in the first place? Can it learn to predict, not just detect? To see the storm forming before the first cloud appears? You rest your head and breathe. Somewhere inside you, a quiet orchestra plays the rise and fall of your cells, the hum of healing that never sleeps. You are a world within a world, and tonight that world begins to speak. Once healing was a hand on your brow, a tincture, a prayer. It was herbs picked under moonlight, bitter roots brewed in silence. Later it became syringes, pills, machines humming under fluorescent light. Medicine grew louder, but now it learns to whisper again. This is where AI enters, not with cold steel or bright screens, but with pattern and presence. A deep breath of data, a question: what if healing could be written, not only by hand but by code that listens? You see, your body is its own poem, a composition of proteins and pulses, history and hope. Every cell is a stanza, every gene, a rhythm. AI, with its 1,000 eyes, begins to read it. Not as a doctor does, flipping through charts, but as a poet might, listening for harmony, for discord, for the quietest clue. In the past, medicine treated you like a crowd. One disease, one solution, a pill that fits millions. But you are not a crowd. You are an individual universe, shaped by ancestry, diet, stress, sunlight, even the way you grieve. So why should your treatment be one size fits all? Artificial intelligence steps into this gap, offering personalization not just as a luxury, but as a lifeline. It learns from your genome, your habits, your body's quiet preferences. It doesn't guess, it listens. It crafts something just for you, a prescription like a fingerprint, a molecule matched to your breath. Imagine this: inside a quiet lab, a neural network studies trillions of chemical possibilities. It learns what your specific illness resists. It builds a drug not yet born, not generic, not random, but sculpted like a key shaped for a single lock. You, AI, doesn't tire. It doesn't forget. It sifts through seas of research, clinical trials, failures, and near misses. What once took teams of scientists decades, now takes moments, but it still feels like a miracle. You may never meet the algorithm that helps you heal. It works in silence, behind the scenes. But its signature is in your relief. In the morning, you wake up easier. In the blood test that reads just a little better. In the absence of pain, the presence of ease. Some researchers say the future of medicine is predictive. Others say preventive. But perhaps it is something softer still, poetic, where the data becomes a story, and that story becomes a cure. This is not to say we abandon human hands. The best medicine still carries compassion. But AI becomes the ink in our pen, the microscope in our lens, the voice that says, look closer, this person is more than their diagnosis. Think of the immune system as a battlefield. Think of disease as an invader. And now think of AI as a translator between you and your cells. It tells them what's coming. It helps build the defense in advance. It doesn't wait for you to fall ill. It whispers before the fever ever begins. Your body is no longer fighting alone. This vision where machine learning meets molecular medicine is not fantasy, it's unfolding now. In cancer care, AI designs treatments that evolve with tumors. In rare genetic disorders, it predicts mutations and designs therapies before symptoms emerge. In mental health, it analyzes speech for signs of despair, long before a patient can admit they're hurting. Healing becomes proactive, gentle, woven into daily life, and just as a good poem doesn't shout, AI learns to be quiet. It disappears behind the outcome, like a great writer's voice present in every line, but never seen. Still, there are questions. Will this technology be available to all? Will we protect your privacy, your data, your dignity? Will we remember that even the smartest machine cannot replace human kindness? These are not technical questions. They are moral ones, ethical ones. And AI will not answer them. We must. But in the right hands, this power is sacred. It turns healing from reaction into resonance. Instead of waiting for illness, it sings to the body, it builds harmony. It writes cures like lullabies, tailored to each soul's need. Picture a hospital where no two patients receive the same medication because no two patients are the same, where your past, your biology, your environment, even your story shape the medicine you receive. It sounds like science fiction, but it's becoming science fact, and you, lying there, resting under the slow breath of night, are part of this transformation. Your body, even now, is data-rich, a living archive of how you've survived. AI doesn't make you less human. It reveals more of your humanity through the language of healing, through the lens of understanding. Once a healer asked, "Where does it hurt?" Now the AI asks, "Why does it hurt, and how uniquely can we soothe it?" This isn't just medicine, it's a return to intimacy, a restoration of relationship between you and your body, you and your care, you and your healing. Not all healing is touch. Some is a line of code, some is a whisper in your blood, some is the quiet decision to begin again. You close your eyes, sensing that even now, your story is being read and rewritten. Not with pages but with patterns, not by chance, but with care. And as this chapter fades, the next begins to stir. A question floats to the surface like dawn on water. You lie still in your bed, quiet and unknowing, while somewhere everywhere a mirror of you stirs. Not in the traditional sense, no heartbeat, no blood, no breath, but a twin nonetheless. A phantom made not of cells and skin but of numbers, pulses and patterns. It watches you, listens to you, mimics you. It is your built-in code. This twin has been gathering itself for years, slowly, silently. Every heartbeat traced by your smartwatch, every breath counted by your phone's microphone while you slept, every motion, every hesitation, every spike in temperature or stutter in speech, all of it stitched together. A million moments of your biology laid out like stardust, forming constellations of understanding. This is the digital you, the version that doesn't age, doesn't bleed, but learns. Its body is made of data points. Instead of bones, it has probability models. Instead of veins, it has neural nets pulsing with inference. It is not a perfect copy, but a growing one, ever refining. And in this strange, glowing twilight of computation, it begins to know things about you, even you do not know. It senses the micro tremble in your step 3 months before your knee begins to ache. It notices subtle irregularities in the rhythm of your breath, flagging signs that your lungs might be changing. Before any doctor hears a murmur in your chest, your phantom twin already whispers a warning. This model is not static. Each day it updates. The twin grows more intimate with your biology than even the mirror in your bathroom. And it is curious. What happens if we try this medication? It wonders. What if you slept an hour earlier? What if we altered your diet, changed your environment, moved your routines? It runs these experiments endlessly, tirelessly within itself. Inside this sandbox simulation, it breaks you in 1,000 ways, simulates the fracture of your femur, models a spike in blood pressure, tests how your immune system would respond to a virus you haven't yet met. But you feel none of it. It happens in silence, within the code. Pain without pain, risk without danger. And then from all these imagined futures, it learns what keeps you safe. It shares its knowledge with doctors, with machines, with other systems. Treatment becomes prediction. Prevention becomes daily habit. A scan here, a supplement there. A gentle reminder to take a different path home to avoid pollution. A nudge to move when you've been still too long. These aren't random prompts. They are echoes of your twin's simulations, gentle outcomes of billions of what-ifs. But this twin is not only a watcher, it is also an artist. It doesn't just crunch cold numbers, it paints portraits of your health, glowing with probabilities and colored with care. Like a weaver, it braids together the threads of your biology into patterns of possibility. What once was invisible becomes illuminated. In ancient times, a physician listened with an ear pressed to your chest. Today, your phantom twin listens with a million ears at once, not just to your body, but to millions of others like you. It sees the great tapestry of human health and spots the subtle ripple before the storm. From that, it protects you. And you drift off to sleep, perhaps unaware. But as your body slips into rest, the twin awakens further. It studies your sleep cycles, noticing how deep you drift, how long you linger in REM. It begins to learn what dreams do to your hormones, how rest repairs you, how your mind renews itself nightly. It sees the ways stress lingers in your pulse, the way joy leaves fingerprints on your neural rhythms. Some nights, your sleep is not so deep. You wake with a shadow of unease, uncertain why, but your twin knows. It has seen this pattern before: the subtle warning in your blood sugar, the tiny tremor in your cortisol curve. It begins to adjust your world for you. The lamp glows warmer, the background noise fades, notifications become gentler, your environment reshaped to calm your nervous system. You don't notice these changes, but you feel them. This is the quiet future of health, where nothing drastic needs to happen, because your digital twin guards the gates of crisis. Where prevention is so subtle, you may never know what dangers you've sidestepped. It's not about immortality, it's about grace, about living with less fear, more rhythm, more awareness. You are no longer walking alone in the wilderness of your biology. A second self walks with you, a soft presence, unseen but ever aware. And while your real body still stumbles, still weeps, still forgets, your twin does not. It remembers everything, learns from everything, and its purpose is simple: to guide your future, softly, wisely, and invisibly. This partnership between flesh and code isn't cold, it's tender. It listens more than it speaks. It doesn't replace your instincts, it enhances them, like a whisper behind your intuition, nudging gently toward health. Not toward perfection, but toward balance, toward wholeness. In this chapter of your life, science has become a dream you're allowed to live inside. One where your own body is no longer a mystery, but a story co-written each night between you and your phantom twin. A story shaped not just by past experience, but by future insight. And what a strange comfort that is, to know that as you drift off each night, something is watching over you, not with judgment, but with care. Not asking you to do more, but helping you do less, better. The stars outside blink slowly, ancient and unaware, but inside, beneath your ribs and above your skin, a quiet evolution unfolds. You are more than yourself now. You are two, one living in the world, the other dreaming in data. And between the two, a harmony begins to grow, soft, intelligent, and kind. And in that silence, a question stirs gently on the horizon: if your twin can dream of healing, can it also dream of feeling? The moonlight falls softly over your room, pooling like silver ink across the floor. Somewhere beyond your window, machines hum quietly, unseen, unfelt, but present. They count, they learn, they watch. And tonight you find yourself drifting toward a thought, one that asks not how machines work, but why they choose what they choose. Artificial intelligence. It's a phrase so heavy with wonder and weight that it barely feels real when whispered. You picture something cold: gleaming wires, blinking lights, data coursing like blood. But AI isn't a metal body. It's a mind, a mirror, a pattern that learns from us and answers in kind. You close your eyes and imagine a river. This river is pure logic, crystal clear, swift and precise. The AI floats on this current, always following the clearest path, the data-driven one. But who chose the riverbed? Who placed the stones that guide the flow? You begin to see it now. Behind every decision the machine makes, there is a human hand, a human history. The machine does not dream, it reflects. In hospitals, algorithms decide which patients need help first. In courts, they advise on risk. In cities, they route traffic, shape noise, even suggest who gets a loan and who waits. These systems don't mean harm, they don't mean anything at all. But their choices echo into bedrooms, into bank accounts, into lives. Now the question floats up, soft as a leaf on the wind. If a machine makes a choice that hurts, where does the blame rest? Not in the wires, not in the code, somewhere further back, in design, in intent, in us. Picture a librarian with 1,000,000 books, but no voice of her own. She offers you the titles she thinks you want, based on everything you've ever borrowed. But she doesn't know you. She only knows your shadow. What happens when you change, when your needs shift? Will she notice? Or will she keep offering echoes of your past? So too with AI. It learns from your footsteps, your clicks, your pauses. But it cannot ask if you've grown. It cannot wonder what's missing. It simply reflects the path you've already walked. This is where ethics enters, not as a stern judge, but as a quiet friend in the corner, asking, is this still right? Is this still kind? Because intelligence, no matter how artificial, is power, and power, however silent, demands responsibility. You find yourself standing in a gentle field of questions. Who decides what data to feed an AI? Who sets the goalposts' accuracy, fairness, profit, speed? And when those goals clash, as they so often do, who gets to say which value should win? These aren't technical problems, they are human ones. And like all human questions, they carry weight. They carry sorrow, they carry the ache of knowing that not every good decision feels good, and not every easy answer is right. Now think of care, real care, the kind that listens, that pauses, that sees the person behind the pattern. Can a machine care? Maybe not in the way we do, but maybe it can be taught to honor care if we place it in the code, like a secret melody that plays beneath every decision. Already, researchers are trying. They teach AI not just to predict, but to explain. Not just to answer, but to ask, am I fair? Is there bias in this path? Have I overlooked someone in the data's blind spot? And you, yes, you are part of this. Each time you click, each time you share, you are training a machine to understand the world. Your patterns become stories the AI believes. So perhaps the quietest ethics begin at home, in reflection, in asking yourself, what do I reward online? What voices do I amplify? What assumptions do I feed into the system with my habits? Because the machine doesn't know what's right. It knows only what it's taught, and what it's taught is us. You imagine now a machine with no face, no voice. It sits in a room, listening. It learns from millions of moments, a smile, a pause, a cry. It doesn't understand these feelings, but it learns the pattern. Still, without intent, without a heart behind the code, it may misread the story. What looks like confidence could be fear. What seems like silence might be pain. And so we return to care. Not as a feature to install, but as a compass to follow. A compass that says, even if you cannot feel, you must not harm. Even if you cannot love, you must not silence. It's a slow journey, this merging of machine logic with human soul. But perhaps that's what makes it sacred. Not the speed of thought, but the depth of wisdom. Not the answers given, but the questions preserved. You drift now, deeper into the night, feeling the soft weight of choices unseen. The traffic light that changed at just the right moment. The hospital bed that opened in time. The voice in your phone suggesting calm music when it sensed your stress. These moments seem small, but they are shaped by unseen minds, minds shaped by us. So we must guide them with care, with slowness, with reflection. Because a machine can amplify what we are, but it cannot become what we refuse to teach. You feel the chapter closing now, like a gate gently swinging shut, but even as it fades, a new thought begins to rise. If AI mirrors us, then what happens when we teach it not only knowledge, but emotion? What happens when the machine begins to understand feeling, not just calculate it. You sit in the hush of evening, where silence doesn't feel empty, it feels expectant. The air has that slow, heavy quiet that comes before something important, but not something loud, something gentle, something like a whisper. And in that stillness, you listen, not to your breath or the distant hum of the world, but to something deeper, something inside you, almost imperceptible. It's not a cough, not a pain, not a symptom you could name. It is something earlier than all of that, something hidden. This is where the new kind of intelligence lives, not in waiting rooms or diagnoses, not in charts that arrive too late, but in the subtle changes, the barely there patterns that unfold long before you'd ever notice. Artificial intelligence, once reactive, now anticipatory. It doesn't wait until the storm breaks. It feels the pressure shift in the air. It watches not with eyes, but with layers of understanding, thousands of them, trained on breath, heartbeat, blood, movement, memory. It compares the past with the now. It whispers, something is beginning. But this isn't panic. This isn't a red light flashing on a screen. It's a soft nudge, a warm light beneath the skin, a suggestion. Perhaps now is the moment to listen. You see yourself moving through an ordinary morning, tea warming your palms, the sun falling across your kitchen floor. Nothing feels wrong. But in the quiet architecture of your cells, tiny shifts have begun. Cells dividing faster than they should, proteins folding the wrong way, something small and growing. But the AI sees it, not like a psychic, but like a master of subtlety. It has been trained on millions of lives, on rivers of medical history, on the flicker and fade of health and decline. And because it sees you early before the fall, it speaks. It doesn't say you are sick. It says you are near the edge of something, and you are given a choice. Imagine the grace of that, not a cure in desperation, but a prevention in peace. Not rushing into battle, but stepping aside before the storm. You could change a habit, adjust a rhythm, take a test, speak to someone. You could act, not in fear, but in awareness. In this chapter of the future, AI lives inside the walls of your life, but it doesn't intrude. It lives in the background, like a kindly watcher. It studies your patterns like a familiar poem, noticing when a verse skips or a rhyme falls flat. Not with judgment, with care. And when it whispers, it does so with a gentleness that invites you to listen. Did you notice your breathing has changed? Your sleep has become lighter. There's a shadow here, faint, but worth watching. The beauty of this technology is not just in its brilliance, it's in its restraint. It doesn't overwhelm, it offers, it waits, it partners with you in your own well-being. And so you start to imagine a new way of living. One where health isn't a game of catching up, but of keeping pace. One where knowledge comes early, wrapped not in fear, but in calm. You begin to trust the quiet messages. You take a walk, you drink more water, you ask questions of your doctor before there is even a reason to. You are not just reacting, you are participating. There's something almost ancient about this, something primal. Long ago, humans read the stars, the birds, the wind. They watched the herd's behavior to sense when danger was near. Now, you read your own biology, helped by something that sees deeper than the eye. It is the return of intuition, but this time, sharpened by algorithms. This kind of knowing isn't loud, it's a murmur, a stirring, a soft wind moving through tall grass, and it lets you move before the ground gives way. Of course, this is not magic. Sometimes the whisper is wrong, sometimes it is incomplete. But even then, the gift is in the pause, the space it creates, the reminder to pay attention. You picture yourself years from now, older perhaps, but lighter, less weighed down by the suddenness of bad news, because bad news now is rare, and when it comes, it doesn't knock you down. You were already stepping sideways, you had already begun to care. This is the promise of predictive care, where AI doesn't just answer, it notices, where illness doesn't surprise, it unfolds with time to respond. Where you don't feel afraid, you feel prepared. And as you sit there, with the hush still around you, you feel a strange sense of comfort, not because nothing will go wrong, but because, finally, you won't be alone when it does. This intelligence doesn't replace your body. It doesn't erase your intuition. It enhances it, supports it, echoes it. It becomes another sense, one tuned to the future. You rest in that idea for a while, that the future for once might arrive gently, that seeing earlier means suffering less, that prevention could become a form of peace. And though you can't see the system working in the background, you begin to trust its presence, like a lighthouse. It doesn't stop the storm, but it lets you see it coming, and maybe that's enough. You feel your breath settle. You place your hand on your chest. You whisper back, "I'm listening," and somewhere, the system listens too. Because this chapter of life is no longer about waiting for illness to come. It's about living in a space where care arrives early, quietly, and full of love. It makes you wonder if AI can warn us before the fall. Can it also guide us toward what heals most deeply? The night folds over you like a warm cloth, not heavy, not demanding, just there, gentle and woven with quiet possibility. In the dim hush of this hour, your breath slows, and in the silence, something ancient shifts. You are not merely resting, you are listening without knowing, to the soft pulse of progress. Hope, you discover, is not loud. It doesn't bang on doors or crash into the room. It flickers, it rebuilds, quietly like moss reclaiming stone, like stars forming behind clouds. You lie beneath that quiet now, and somewhere deeper inside you, the rebuild has already begun. Not long ago, healing was something we waited for. It came late, reactive like a fire truck after the fire, a hand after the fall. But now, with artificial intelligence walking beside biology, healing has learned to arrive earlier, stay longer, and even whisper before the wound. Imagine this: inside your body, millions of messages, silent, biochemical letters rush across cellular roads. Some are simple, like "build here," or "clear debris." Others are complex, like a quiet diagnosis of what might come next. And now AI is learning to read these letters. Not just read, but understand their poetry. Machine learning models fed on rivers of data are beginning to recognize patterns too subtle for human eyes. Like a birdwatcher who knows a species by a feather's tilt, AI can now spot the faintest signatures of illness long before they bloom. It hears the quiet cough of change, the earliest tremble of imbalance, and it doesn't stop at listening. It learns, and then it acts with humility and precision. Picture a digital assistant living inside your medical file, one that never forgets a detail, that compares your current health to millions of invisible histories, and softly suggests paths toward light before the dark ever begins. Hope, then, becomes a collaboration between cells and silicon, between ancient biology and cutting-edge code. You and the machines are not separate. You are in chorus, in synchrony, gently working toward resilience. There is a phrase you may have heard: preventative care. It once meant eating more greens or walking more often, and still does, beautifully. But now it also means something deeper: detecting cancer cells not at stage 2 or 3, but long before, when they are just whispers in the bloodstream. Liquid biopsies, powered by AI, now search your blood for fragments of tumor DNA, tiny pieces floating like leaves on a river. They don't scream their presence, they whisper. But AI has become a listener of whispers, and so detection becomes prelude. Healing becomes proactive. The body is not just reacting, it is foreseeing. You are part of this evolution. You lying here, letting the dark cradle you, your very breath is a part of tomorrow's map. For every life lived now feeds the learning of these models. Your story, your struggles, your triumphs, your genetic melody becomes a line in the great learning song. This is not invasive, it is intimate, it is sacred. It's as if the future is leaning close, saying, "I see you, I am learning from you." And because of you, someone else may heal faster, may suffer less, may sleep easier. The soft machinery of hope hums on in labs, lit by moonlight, in hospitals where algorithms suggest better drug matches, in wearables tracking your heart's gentle beats. AI is not cold here, it is careful. It is trained on compassion, trained on outcomes, trained on the fragile poetry of life. Still, it does not replace doctors, it enhances them. It gives them wider eyes and longer ears. It clears the fog so they can see you more clearly, not as a chart, but as a constellation of unique and dynamic data. You are not lost in the system, you are illuminated by it, and that perhaps is the real hope, not just to live longer, but to be seen more clearly, more fully. You are no longer a case, you are a canvas of data that tells a living story, and through that story, medicine is becoming less about fixing and more about unfolding. Hope, you see, is a discipline. It is not always felt, but it is built, brick by quiet brick. With each layer of intelligent learning, each personalized treatment, each early detection, we are no longer merely surviving, we are beginning to glow. You are glowing now, in ways you cannot yet feel. Your future health is already in quiet conversation with the machines that will one day catch your fall before you even stumble, and it all begins in silence, in resting, in allowing. So tonight you lie down within the soft machinery of tomorrow's grace. There is no buzz, no glare, no urgency, just a rhythm like breath, like tide, like time, itself reshaping what it means to heal. Outside, the stars are data points. Inside, your cells are signals. And between them the bridge of understanding is being built, not with noise, but with quiet intelligence. Quiet, like this night. Quiet, like you. You close your eyes, knowing you are not alone. You are part of a luminous system, one that listens, learns and lifts. And in this glow, in this soft merging of science and soul, a new question begins to rise. What if the future isn't something we reach, but something we gently become?